All right. Well, first off, anybody who has viewed or listened to, like I said, viewing's a bit of a stretch when considering it was very, very poor lighting. My second live video from yesterday, I apologize for some of the connectivity issues. I did warn you that I was traveling through a very remote area of the state, and I wasn't joshing about that. The connections down there were much worse than I expected them to be. I don't know. Next time, if I happen to be in that vicinity and I do a video, I'll just record it and upload it later. Although I can't, even that can't guarantee there won't be some connectivity issues because the road is sometimes rough and rocky. Just like in any kind of role play. If you drop your sword, pick it back up and jump back into the fray. Come on. This stinking old truck doesn't always want to get into gear, or it slips back out of gear. It's been doing that ever since our so-called mechanic tore it apart and put it back together again for no reason. That was some months back, and I was quite livid about it. Although I think I even did a video or two on it. But that's not what we're here talking about. It is actually a very nice day out here. The weather is got to be in the 30s because everything's trying to melt. Just until just a few minutes ago, we didn't have much of a wind, so the wind was nice. I mean, it was nice enough to be outside without your hat or without a light jacket. Yeah, I gotta love these tracks. And the sloppiness of the road, of course, makes everything just peachy keen. I've tried to keep these windows clean twice now today, and they just get gunked back up. It's a never-ending battle, and which is not necessarily a good thing because my right side driver's door and mirror over there keeps, I can't barely see out of it, to be honest. So to avoid issues, I stay in the right-hand lanes as much as possible. I'm not going to stop every half hour at a convenience store to wipe the things off. I don't know any other way of keeping them clean other than that, and I'm not spending my whole day doing this stuff. I have once again an oddball schedule. I have this one job, and started this morning. It's 4 trips, roughly 5,000 gallons, and it's actually, once you get started, it's just a matter of driving back and forth across the city all morning. Should be done by early afternoon. And then I have 2 this evening starting at 7 o'clock, and if I'm lucky, I'll be back home by midnight or a little after, and then I have to be up at 6 a.m. to get everything going because my first job is at 8. And then for some reason, the previous scheduler scheduled a 3rd job in early afternoon tomorrow, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. So when I get done with the 2 morning jobs, I'm going to go straight out to the 3rd job and knock that one out. Be done for the rest of the day. Hooray! So, like I said, I'm not going to redo video 2 because while there's some issues with the sound and the connections being dropped here and there, but the lion's share of it came through fairly well, I think. I mean, I do listen to my own videos. I do view my own stuff at least once after the fact, so I kind of get an idea just how badly I was rambling on, because there are times when, to me, I don't know, this is not self-grandizing or anything of that nature, but when I come back and I listen to some of my stuff, it actually kind of sounds like I know what I'm talking about. But when I'm talking about it, I feel like I'm babbling and rambling and just kind of lurching all over the place. Part of my issues or problems is that there's so many different things I want to discuss that I have trouble sometimes just focusing on 1 or 2 and not wanting to leapfrog back and forth between things or to add stuff. And this is a nice little addition for the next, I don't know how long. They're doing some major sewer lines over here to my right at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. And I'm assuming they're digging under this intersection now. So they've cut which is a very busy road, in half at a very crucial intersection. This is the intersection of East University and 30th, and it is the corner of the Iowa State, the west corner of the Iowa State Fairgrounds, and is very notorious for having lots of accidents because it's kind of a really busy intersection and not overly well, I don't know, it's outdated and old. It kind of really needs some TLC, some of that badly needed infrastructure stuff, for example. I mean, there's so many potholes and stuff over here in the turning lane on my left, it'll tear you up. And you got to be cautious with it. And there's always somebody who wants to rush out in front of one of these trucks. And about 1 out of 100 end up wishing they didn't. It's that bad here on occasion. So it is what it is. You can see one of our competitors up front. He has a much nicer, bigger, newer truck. They do a lot of sewer work too. And here we go, splash in the mud again. I tell you gotta love it. It's kind of like an early spring day. You know it's still winter. But part of you is rooting for spring, and you want it to be spring, and you embrace it as such. You almost want to take my jacket off until I get out of the cab and I feel that wind bite into me again. I'm like, no, it's not spring just yet. It's still February, and the middle of February. So let's look at Livvi. Livvi is our third player for my D&D Beyond campaign. She is a half elf, early 20s, chosen profession as a bard, and she is about as polar opposite as Lita in every possible way, with the exception of beauty. They're both quite stunning if you go by the pictures, the artwork that their players chose to represent them, and I'm fine with that. You know, it doesn't. I'm old. I'm jaded. I'm a man of the world. Somewhat pervy, so yeah, it is what it is. Like it or not, I have no problem taking things to some pretty twisted levels until they, as long as everybody's on board with it. Anyway, picture will feed the mind. Livvi's character starts out with a fairly colorful background, but it's colorful and yet limited in its own way. Gotta love that. It said this old truck, I don't know. Just sometimes it'll alert you right out of your seat. And I've been driving this thing for 3 years now, so I know it's not my driving, it's the truck. Although other people might go otherwise. Well, you drive this thing. I don't care how many years you've driven clutch. Get in here and drive this thing for just an afternoon. I have seen a number of part-time drivers come and go who have tried and bailed on this thing. One guy got 10 blocks and he got out in his truck and said, I'm not driving it. So you tell me what that's supposed to mean, because I don't know. Anyway, back to Livvi. And her character has some pretty colorful background. She is, while she's not of noble status and she's not from per se a wealthy family, because of her state of birth, she was raised in a more, I don't know what you'd say, more upper class minded society. Her little village is mostly elves, and elves have this, by human standards, good Lord, I'm going to have to wash these windows again because I really cannot see out this thing now. So she has this ideal, but she also has aspirations. She's ambitious. She wants to be a social climber. She, in a lot of aspects, is exactly what she is. She's quite quick on her feet and quick with her wits, and willing to use her talents to progress her wishes to become somebody much higher station than she is in her current moment. She's also quite rambunctious and full of energy. So her character is almost girlishly giggly in her pursuit of things, to the point of almost too much. It's not necessarily a bad thing from the role-playing standpoint. This makes her for a very colorful character. So when she has she starts out having met this person of interest called Belina, who is unbeknownst to Livvy's character, is a city or a special agent of, you will. So one of the lions serpents or something like that. I know the book's got a name for him. Anyway, she works for the crown, and she's a spy, counter spy. Mostly she is watching out for and hunting down agents and troublemakers from other city-states and outside the kingdom, so to speak, to protect the kingdom. So at some point there was a brief encounter where a young Livvi encountered Belina while Belina was out in the provinces doing whatever she was doing, and they had a very brief, memorable adventure where I imagine Livvi was basically a tag-along, and because otherwise she wouldn't have gained. She'd have gained experience for it ideally, but she did become enamored with this lifestyle that Belina projects. So this is her contact in the city. So Belina helps her get a job interview with the sub-minister for internal communications, i.e. the guy that handles the city criers and the bell ringers and posting them, the modern media of the era for the crown. He is his ministry is a sub-department of the ministry of the head of the ministry. The head sage is ministry, so he has some connections to some quite powerful people, which is what she wanted. She wants a window for the possibility of getting up further in her climbing. All right. This could be somebody there, and I wouldn't know. I'm going to have to definitely get out and rub that off again. You can see the roads. I just turned the windshield wiper off, and here we are, spraying again. This is terrible. This is almost as bad as if, you had a big bad snowstorm going on. It's just, what do you do? Right? Plug on and move forward. Fortunately, this is heading for my third trip of 4, which you're going to ride along with me. You may or may not enjoy it. I don't know. I don't care. I'm mainly entertaining myself at the moment. If I lose signal, it's possibly because I'm in the city, and there's there's always dead spots here and there. They're rare, but they do occur. There's also a chance that I'll either get a phone call from the office or that 1-800 number that keeps pestering me, or even worse, my service might run out. I don't know how I have left in it. I know that it keeps squawking. I need to refill it tomorrow because the main service expires tomorrow. So when I get home later, I probably just have to bite the bullet. And I want to get out to Walmart and buy the card. The card, I can get one for $35, and it gives me 6 gigs of high-speed internet for the price of 5. But you can't get that through the internet version. Doesn't matter because I usually end up buying 2 or 3 additional 5 gig add-ons at $10 a piece, depending on how the month plays out. I don't have a regular monthly service because I don't want that expense. Don't turn on red. So Livvy's character, she goes into this ministry, and the sub-minister is this fat, greasy. Well, no, he's a skinny, greasy, lecherous, pompous, self-important bureaucrat type, and she uses her assets basically to charm him, along with a little bit of her bardic skill, and she's basically convinced him to give her a temporary opportunity to show what she can do. And so she's granted a temporary crier status, which gives her access to the news and important information that's going to be disseminated to the public and to other agencies or ministries around the city, including, like bolos, be on the lookout for, and or I suppose you could call them wanted posters, however you want to do that, and other things of interest. before that gets made public. Perhaps maybe only a few hours before it gets made public. But if you understand how this sort of spy stuff works, a lot of times just a little bit of information before everybody else notices is a huge thing. So we're going to pause here for a minute, pull into this station, and borrow her tiny station at that. And I gotta clean my windows off. I'm gonna wreck somebody. So just hold tight. We're just getting started, and I don't know if there's a pause here or not. So hang on. All right then, sitting across the street from a Papa John's, which we have the contract to do the hoods at all the Papa John's in our vicinity. So all of them in the city of Des Moines and several outside the city, neighboring major towns like Ames, Iowa, the home of the Cyclones, Iowa State University, and a slew of other things. Ironically enough, for reasons I've never been able to get an answer out of, we do not do their grease trap. Which, you know, if you're going to do the hoods, why not do the grease trap? Why not cut a deal? You know, I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe it never came up. We shall never know. So, Livvi uses her assets and her wiles and her bardic abilities to win herself a temporary trial period as a city crier. Now, she leaves the office and almost bounces off of the half-orc Mord as he's entering. And, you know, the two of them at this point do not know that they're fellow players. And in truth, they did not know they were fellow characters in the game until they started talking amongst themselves and kind of got their characters introduced. So at that point, Mord at least had realized he'd had a brief encounter with one of the other players. Livvi's oblivious to a lot of that sort of stuff. Her character and our player is a little bit too, but that's great because her player is really enthusiastic about this play-by-post and especially the style. She dialed in, she, I'm not sure. Anyway, they dialed in right away that they could ad-lib, they could add stuff, they could enhance the responses and make assumptions as to what the next one might be, just like I was explaining later that's how it can work out, which helps contribute to the adventure and the story, and as well as helping build the world around us. So we've got her character, and she's met outside the city or outside the government building by her friend Belina, the agent, who takes her, sweeps her off and congratulating her for her success and for getting the job, and they stop at a tea shop for some morning tea and cookies or something like that. And in truth, Melina has an alternate motive for helping out her friend get this job, because through Livvi, Melina can get access to these important documents and get an early scan of stuff that's going on before it becomes posted. So there's always something going on. Somebody wants something. So this makes for an interesting character. Now, Melina, as an NPC, also makes an appearance later at the 8 Star as the raven-haired beauty who Mord notices briefly and recognizes some kind of official person in this. The way this woman was comporting herself, she reeks of government of some sort. And yet that's as far as that part came along. But it was another connection between the players in my convoluted style, and for potential further play or conflict, depending on how one looks at it. So we look at Livvi, and then we segue from her brief encounter with her friend to her first going out to the city and to give out her speech. Now, she's assigned to the trades quarter, which is the same, and the market that's outside of the Black Rose. So she's across from the Black Rose on several occasions in her storyline, spewing out her stuff. And it's during this first encounter with doing her crier bit that she has a brief brush with Amlak and his sergeant, who are prominent NPCs in the story at the moment, as well as Alan's introduction to the campaign. Alan basically starts out lurking at the side, on the side of this marketplace, and hears her speech about being ever vigilant about seditionists and foreign agents and foreigners in general who are here to cause problems for the city and for the altar of the lion, the city's ruler, blah blah blah. If anything suspicious, turn them in, blah blah. You know how that stuff rolls, and it makes him a little more leery, because his character's backstory is he's a traveler and he is a foreigner from a foreign land, in a place that isn't overly happy with, is a bit paranoid, which is ironic considering we've established this is a seaport city. Tyrannus is loaded with foreigners. There's lots of people and humanoids coming from lots of places to be involved in whatever they got to do here. So she later has a brief encounter with our Lita character, although she once again almost runs Lita down to pursue a conversation with our silversmith, who was pounding on the door earlier the next day of the House of Healing, trying to get answers about his daughter. And she rapid fires off a bunch of questions about it. Now, she's interested in these disappearances. Livvi is realized if she can help solve this mystery, boost her standing, get her recognized by maybe the right kind of people and the wrong kind of people, then she can benefit from this stuff at the end of the day, which is one of the reasons she's progressing, in the line that she is. So before we get to that point, that evening before, after she was done with, that's what happens when you have a short earbud. It catches on my steering wheel. A bunch of electric tape wrapped around the steering wheel, because frankly the steering wheel, like everything else, is starting to disintegrate on this truck. It's coming apart, and you can't put duct tape on this stuff because it won't wear as good. And electric tape does wear. I tried to get a wheel wrap for it, but they don't make one in this size. It's a very weird size, very large wheel. And I don't know if the truck stops carry them, and I surely don't want to pay for one myself. It's bad enough I have to pay for a lot of the stuff I pay for because, well, I'll just leave it at that. some basic things to work. Sometimes you got to pay for it yourself, because otherwise you're some people that will waste thousands of dollars on some weird tangent that doesn't pay off, will cry about $20. It's very strange. I mean, it is not that strange. We know how this works, but it is what it works. Okay, person, you have to go where you're going to go, because I got to turn here. This particular place I'm going to is a retirement home, and to get to it, they have a back parking lot. And as you can see, we kind of got to wind our way through some back city streets. This is a dead-end street. It dead ends the parking lot at the place. And what I like about these is it's not a huge interceptor, so I'm not going to spend the entire day messing with it. I mean, here we are coming for my third load, and all I got to do is back up once at this particular place. What you can't see is the huge snow pile that their plow guy plowed up in front of my manholes, so I can only access one of the two manholes, which I took pictures of it for records, and I claim winter rules. It's a thing in our company. And pop the one I could get to, and that's what we're going through. I will get 95% of the contents, which is good enough until spring, when I can have access to both of them. Meanwhile, I come in here, and there's a hose sitting there. I left it in there. I got the manhole mostly covered, and I got a thing warning people away from it. And it's in a spot where there's no reason for anybody to go. And so I will jump out here in a minute, hook up the hose. In about 20 minutes or so, we'll have a full tank, and we'll repeat the journey we just took to get to where I dumped. So hang on there, friends. We'll see how this works. I never tried to record with the pump running. Alright, so here we are, pumping load number 3, and irony of irony, the snow is starting to melt quite fast, enough so that it's starting to uncover that other manhole. So it's possible I might be able to just, on this last load, scrape that manhole back and take care of it. One won't know until we get there. So, Livvi the night before, she stops at a different tavern, the Quarter Horse, and the Quarter Horse, based off of the little bio that's in the game supplement, is this fairly divey place. And the innkeeper, the owner, has this quirk of where he tries to act like the fatherly figure while he's milking people for information that he can later try to blackmail them with some reason, right? Anyway, we don't have that in anytime soon for Livvi. I don't know if that'll ever even pan out, but I had two merchants there having a discussion about these disappearances. And once again, like I said in the previous video, this is a big city. It's huge. People disappear constantly, all the time. You know, people decide to get up and go. You know, young people decide to go up on adventures and forget to tell somebody, or adventures taking them far away, or they run afoul of numerous people and other things that inhabit the cities and the bowels of cities. Then there's a lot of the people who just up and die, or we're in a major seaport, so press gangs are not uncommon. Finding themselves waking up, going to the bar and getting drunk, and waking up the next day with a horrible headache, and you're out to sea already, given a choice to swim or work. Welcome to the life of a pirate, or a merchant, or whatever you want, merchant class. There's a lot of potential there. So, in the case of the average Joe Q public, most people, other than their immediate family and support, I think it's flickering in and out. I don't know if why that's doing that. We're not moving around. It keeps doing that. I might have to shut this down and try for part forward. I don't know. This is an experiment anyway. Good or bad, it's just adding to my list of stuff on my YouTube channel that most people ignore anyway. The idea is that the people that are going missing are fairly well-to-do, whether they're in the upper middle class, the merchants, the upper merchants classes. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Or in the nobles class. Actually, if they were nobility, the nobility would be turning the city upside down for whomever to find out whoever's accosting. They'd be turning to some powerful magics and the priests and priesthoods with their divinish, all the magics that you can put to use to find somebody who's harassing or killed or captured one of your people. And of course, the point that the information being fed to the streets of the city, via the criers and people like them, are that these are just disappearances. They're not actually bodies showing up. That's some misinformation, some alternate rumors that the merchants are having trouble to buy into. So there's this discussion between the innkeeper, the merchants, and Livvi about this stuff. But Livvi this is where she gets some more information about the silversmith and his daughter, some names and stuff. Then she's off on the next. I'm going to get some more information about these people. So the next morning, after she picks up her parchments for the daily stuff and meets with Belina before going out to give her morning speech, she asks Belina about the silversmith and what she knows and so on and so forth. And the character, the player, puts out this barrage of stuff and makes a investigation roll. And the investigation roll is fairly high. So I come back with a barrage of stuff that a lot of it's just common knowledge, but it wouldn't have been common to Livvi because it wasn't her thing. So now it is her thing. So later in the next encounter, because technically this meeting between her and Belina, even if it only lasted for a couple paragraphs, is still an encounter. So she gains experience points for this. And the next encounter is her an hour or so later out there in the market square across from the Black Rose, giving her spiel. And as she's finishing up the daily, the morning's reports and information, she notices the silversmith bounding on the door and sees everything that Lita sees from a different perspective. And immediately, as soon as she gets the opportunity, she rushes over, almost knocking this young lady in a gray dress and travel cloak over, to reach the silversmith to basically apologize and empathize and sympathize and weave a little bit of her bardic spell, if you will, and then bombards the fellow with all kinds of questions because she's trying to get an answer, and she figures that she can help figure out what's going on. Why can't he get in to see his daughter? How did his daughter end up in there? You know, is obviously, you know, she's avoiding letting him know that she knows that his daughter's one of those that went supposedly missing a few nights before, and had obviously had an encounter of some kind, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it. So that's at this point as far as her storyline has progressed. So, and I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and cut this one loose, because I don't know why this thing keeps flickering the way it does. Like I said, the truck's not moving, so it's vibrating, but we'll see if it's actually translating through. All right. Till next time. Game on. Now how do I stop it? Huh?